Excellencies, distinguished keynote speakers, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, and dear friends. It is my honor to welcome you all to the EU Pavilion for this session entitled Land and Climate, Regreening Africa and Great Green Wall. My name is Marietta Jager. I am a Deputy Director General in European Commission, Director General for International Partnership. You all know it as DG IMPA. But today we will explore together with some of our key partners, and I would really like to welcome you all, especially you, Tony, here in the basically immense potential of sustainable land management and large-scale land restoration for climate action and resilience of communities. I hope that you are all as excited as we are, because this will be a very rich discussion, and I see a huge interest in learning more about this subject. So to kick us off, I'm now delighted to introduce you the first speaker. It's a Special Envoy for Climate and Environment Diplomacy, Mr. Tony Aguta. So the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. And I would like to salute you on behalf of the Climate Commissioner Wopke Hoekstra, who has just entered the negotiation tunnel. And distinguished guest, I would also like to start saluting somebody who I just met some time ago in Brussels, Mr. Tony Rinaudo, who's done something amazing and dedicated his whole life to basically kissing alive forests that are underground, already there. We don't see them. But just like your body, if you give Earth a little bit of time, a little bit of space, it will grow and live and thrive. And I want to thank you for your leadership in that, and I wish you all the best on that. It deserves it. COP28, if you think about it, is about good ancestry. It's not about living now and having all you want now. It's about preparing this earth and giving it to the next generations, the next people that are unborn, have no voice or no vote. And we need to green the whole world. But today, of course, the focus is on the continent of Africa. The urgency to act is evident. Average temperatures in Africa drylands are soaring. They're rising 1.5 times faster than the global average. And using another number of 1.5, we like to say keeping 1.5 alive is the goal of this COP. But 1.5 degrees is an average. That's not the same for everyone. And I think the most vulnerable stand to get hurt the most. Natural hazards, including droughts and floods, are increasingly severe, increasingly frequent, and increasingly destructive. These hardships deeply affect the lives and livelihoods of people in living in these lands, lives that are already difficult to begin with. Now, in life, there are never silver bullets that solve everything. Now, I know that there are companies and powers who say there are silver bullets, there are technology. Yes, we need technology, but it will not get us out of this problem. And when it comes to Africa's drylands, but we have a powerful and affordable solution at hand. That is sustainable land management, and large-scale land restoration. Together, they can help us to do three things. First, they create a more resilient, more diversified, and climate-proof income base for communities living in these lands. And secondly, they can help reduce disaster risk because they enable ecosystems to improve, for example, by retaining more water in the soil, which I also think is what Tony Rinaudo's work is doing. And lastly, but very importantly, they can remove carbon from the atmosphere, contributing to a safer climate for the planet. And what we're trying to do is set in motion new cycles, or perhaps back to the future, old cycles that can help us. Our soils, our nature is the largest natural carbon sink we have and an important ally in the fight against climate change. So allow me to illustrate this with a few examples that show this link and how the EU, the European Union, supports these projects. So let's start by the success story of Regreening Africa. Through this land restoration program, we were able to improve the livelihoods of smallholder farmers, bolster food security, a big thing now, and boost resilience to climate change. For example, in partnership with the Somali government and with Minister Mohamed El Makhzoumi, we ran a program of farmer-managed natural regeneration and promoted home gardening. By setting up tree nurseries, we equipped smallholder farmers with over 120,000 seedlings. And this project also promoted the uptake of agroforestry practices in Somalia. There are examples beyond Somalia. Together with our key partner, C4 ICRAF, CEO Ubali Joro, she's right over there, you will hear from her, and several local and international NGOs, we reached 500,000 households and restored nearly 1 million hectares across 8 African countries. And I'm proud to announce to you today that we're preparing a second phase of Regreening Africa. It will operate across 7 countries within the area of the Great Green Wall. And the European Union is a staunch believer in the Great Green Wall, and we've made it a key project under our Global Gateway program. Because the Great Green Wall is quite literally a bulwark against deforestation and the impacts of climate change. And we've been a long-standing supporter, and in the past years decided to step up our funding. In 2022, the EU committed approximately 1.2 billion euros, and that's a lot more in dollars, to the Great Green Wall. When we talk about sustainable land management, we also have to talk about women and youth. And I'm so glad to see we have a representative here in the panel who will be speaking. Both play a pivotal role. If you look at youth, 60% of African population is below 25 years old. The potential of energy, of zest, and the will to succeed and make their lives and their countries and their continent better is immense. There's no way we can regreen Africa without youth. It's simply impossible. A youth activist recently said it well: nothing about youth without youth. Fair engagement is a key to success, and we should include and empower young people and women as much as possible. So I'm particularly glad that we're joined here today, as I said, by Melen Abisa of Inuka Youth for Nature. As we walk out of this session, and eventually also this COP28 in Dubai, I'd like to put this challenge to you. Please help. Please keep raising awareness of land restoration as the most powerful, the most effective, and affordable solution to climate change. We can forge a greener, fairer, and prosperous future for all. We are all in this boat together, and no one can say only your part is sinking. So to hold off, or to finalize with what I started with, being a good ancestor means that we open our minds and create a culture and an attitude to plant the seeds of trees in the shades of whom which we will never sit in, but to do it for all those others that come after us. Not for the planet. The planet has been fine for 4 billion years without humans and will be fine after us if we manage to destroy us. We do this for the health and well-being of humanity, all of humanity. Thank you very much.
Keynote speech. My next speaker is Eliane Ubali Jaro, and she's an incredible lady, and she's the CEO of the Center of International Forestry Research and the World Agroforestry. She is a leader in that area, and with her team, we are key partners in DGINPA in raising the profile of sustainable land management in Africa, dry land, and around the globe. We thank you for all your work, and the floor is yours. Please.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to really be with such distinguished keynote speakers as well. So according to the West African proverb, knowledge is like a garden. If it is not cultivated, it cannot be harvested. These words of wisdom could apply to all walks of life, but it's especially relevant to the topic we are discussing today. At C4ICRAF, our scientists have been cultivating knowledge on sustainable land management for decades through their evidence-based research embedded in development. This has allowed the organization to accumulate more than 70 years of combined expertise between CIFOR and ICRAF, enabling stakeholders and policymakers to harvest its many insights while informing practices that affect landscapes and people. As we gather here at COP28 to raise as the ambition on climate change, it's important to highlight the value of sustainable land management and large-scale restoration to help mitigate and adapt to the effects of a warming planet, and to make communities more resilient to the many threats that come with it. Nowhere else in the world is this interrelationship more evident or alarming than in Africa. The continent is the most affected and least responsible for climate change. Yet Africa is leading the way in harnessing the power of trees, forests, and agroforestry in agricultural landscapes to address climate change. Along with other pressing challenges of our time, such as biodiversity loss, food insecurity, and inequity. Two major initiatives demonstrate the potential of land restoration for climate action. The Great Green Wall is an audacious African-led initiative whose accelerated strategy outlines an ambition to restore 100 million hectares of degraded land in 11 countries across the drylands of the Sahel and the Horn of Africa by 2030. It plans to create 10 million jobs in rural areas, to sequester 250 million tons of carbon, and to improve food security for 20 million people. CIFOR-ICRAF is supporting this process by implementing the Knowledge for Great Green Wall Action Program alongside FAO and with funding from the European Union. We are empowering key stakeholders in the Great Green Wall to enhance their knowledge and management and sharing mechanisms to develop learning and state-of-the-art data platforms connecting from satellite to citizen, to foster dialogue at the national and regional levels, to fund innovations, to strengthen policies and institutions, and to enhance the capacities of the relevant national and regional agencies. The Great Green Wall has a long way to go, and progress has been slow. Yet we remain hopeful that its target can be achieved by 2030, if we all stay focused on its full potential for climate and people, so that the much-needed benefits from restoring the land reaches the communities living in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa. The second initiative I would like to highlight is Regreening Africa, a partnership across science, development, government, and communities with a strong focus on inclusion and working at the local level. It aims to scale land restoration in agricultural landscapes using locally appropriate techniques, including farmer-managed natural regeneration, tree planting, and other appropriate soil and water conservation practices. It addresses three cross-cutting issues: gender, youth, as well as food and nutritional security. CIFOR-ICRAF has been leading the consortium of partners since the program began in 2017, ensuring science and evidence are used to inform, track, and iteratively improve restoration efforts. The goal of Regreening Africa in its first phase was to reverse land degradation, as previously stated, on 1 million hectares across 8 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Financed by the European Union, the program has far-reached more than the 500,000 households and helped them adapt to regreening practices. We look forward to seeing how to take the experience of Phase 1 forward and continuing to expand the restoration of Africa's dry lands. The achievements of Regreening Africa have been recognized and have been shortlisted to officially be representing many flagship programs. There are big programs with big ambitions, and neither of them would be possible without women. Yet women are often excluded from decision-making processes and denied land and tree use rights. CIFOR-ICRAF strives to secure equitable outcomes for rural women in Africa and elsewhere because we recognize women are essential to the restoration of the Earth's ecosystems. They are vital sources of knowledge and talent. They are expert at managing sustainable landscapes. They are experts and they support families through income from tree products. In short, progress on climate change cannot happen without gender equality. Take the example of Agnes from Elgeyo Marakwet County in Kenya, who leads the Chongo Chemtegis Nursery. The group sells seedlings for local restoration efforts and to neighboring communities. This provides income for school fees, household bills to the 18 members, and making a significant difference in their lives and the local area. There are many women like Agnes who can benefit from equitable outcomes. We must take advantage of the momentum we build here at COP28 to promote land restoration for climate initiatives like these, by engaging with local communities in Africa to think big and take on bold, large-scale initiatives. In this way, we can demonstrate the power of collaboration at multiple levels, fostering synergies between actions on land, climate, food security, biodiversity loss, and livelihoods. If we are to succeed in these endeavors, we must continue to cultivate the garden of knowledge so the future generation can harvest its rewards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eliane. Thank you for your words of wisdom, and thank you for recognizing the efforts of European Union and personally really emphasizing the role of gender and women in these efforts. So now we have another very good speaker, and she will emphasize the role of the youth, and she is really a leader when it comes to the proper participation and engagement of young people in the process of in all our interventions. So I would like to give the floor to Meline Abissa. She is working in Inuku Youth for Nature, and please share with us your insights.
Working good. Thank you very much. And before we start, we will play a short video on Inuka.
Inuka is Swahili for to rise up. That basically will work with youth groups across Kenya representing different ecosystems to, number one, deliver nature-based solutions, best practice, give them mentoring and scale-up solutions, but also to allow them to understand storytelling for effective advocacy for their action. Big Ship, that is representing the mangrove ecosystem along Kenya's coast of Mombasa. Friends of Ondiri Swamp, that represent wetlands in Kikuyu areas of Kenya. Then we'll have Marsabit called Nature and People is one, who are actually working on farmer-managed natural generation.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Educate, equip, establish.
And I can't really wait to say what this means for the youth beneficiaries and what this means for communities that are doing conservation and restoration projects.
After mapping these degraded areas, we partner with the communities along this area. After that now we conduct the actual restoration. We have mapped, we have partnered with the communities, and now it is time for us to restore.
Kufikia sasa hii, naweza kusema kwamba kuna zaidi ya eka kama 100 ambazo zimepandwa. Kuna mikoko mingi sana huko nyuma ambayo imekuwa imeshika vizuri sana, inaendelea vizuri, na tumeona kwamba kuna faida nyingi sana, hasa kwa sisi ambao wengine tu wavuvi.
NAPO is working on FMNR, Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration, as a way of dryland restoration technique, whereby we introduce and train our community to manage and protect the naturally growing species like acacias.
Despite the challenges, the drought situation that has been in this county, the residents not only appreciate the need to do restoration, but also managed to forego their means of livelihoods from these forests and ecosystems to ensure that restoration thrives.
Through this study visit, we have been able to learn how to do storytelling through the Y4N curriculum, and it is an inspiration to see how youth are able to craft their stories and be vulnerable to tell their stories and inspire more action to other youth to also take up the work in environment conservation.
So this module that has been on NBES for livelihoods has been an eye-opener to me, because what we've been taken through is how to write project proposals for grants. We feel that we've been enlightened, and we feel that the struggles we've been having in the past have been solved.
I do hope that everyone can tag along the journey, getting to support the youth, scale up the solutions for nature, for their communities, and for livelihood.
Nature-based solutions by Youth with You.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the honor of addressing you today at COP28, a moment for global collaboration in the face of the urgent climate crisis. Today, we gather under the theme Land for Climate, Regreening Africa and the Great Green Wall, to confront the reality that at least 65% of Africa's land is degraded. This degradation not only threatens biodiversity, agricultural productivity, and our livelihood, but also diminishes the resilience of our communities to confront climate change challenges. The need for restoration is evident and presents an opportunity to reduce disasters through improved ecosystem services and contribute significantly to the global effort to secure a safe climate for our planet. Inuka Project by Youth for Nature is an initiative to regreening Africa through local youth-led nature-based solutions to benefit both people and nature. Through innovative techniques like farmer-managed natural regeneration, these initiatives empower communities to reclaim their lands and livelihoods, even in the face of adverse conditions. The success stories emerging from these initiatives are a testament to the transformative power of nature-based solutions that are implemented correctly. Today, we dive deep into these aspects, the connections between sustainable land management and climate change from diverse perspectives, and explore how restoration efforts contribute to ecological vitality, social and economic well-being of people and communities. As we discuss these critical issues, let us not forget that behind the statistics and strategies are real people, communities whose lives are connected to the health of the land they inhabit. Our collective efforts must prioritize grassroots restorations. Our collective efforts must prioritize grassroots solutions, inclusivity, and ensure the benefits of restoration are developed and implemented by the communities that interact with these ecosystems on a daily basis and reach every corner of our society. The time to act is now. Let us seize this moment to forge partnerships with ongoing youth-led initiatives to support and amplify local solutions, share knowledge, and catalyze transformative change. Together, we can turn the tide of land degradation, build resilient landscapes, and create a future for Africa and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to see such inspiring young people, and we are honored really to have so many young people here among us today as well. I've been just told that unfortunately Minister Mohamed was taken by other commitments, and she may be joining us later, and we will give her space during the panel discussion. But I would like you to give a very warm applause to our keynote speakers, please. But we were only warming up, so please stay with us, because now the real discussion is coming. we will have an absolutely gorgeous panel. So we will have a technical break, and please stay here. We need just a couple of minutes to change the podium, and it was honor to have you here, all my dear guest speakers, and I will see you later for the closing remarks. Thank you very much.
All right, we're back live here. Thank you for the tech team. This is the tech equivalent of a Formula One pit stop. This was very quick. So thanks to you for, well, installing our panel very quickly here. My name is Niklas Gottman. I will be moderating today this quite illustrative panel, but we'll get into introducing each and every one in a second. I'm the Policy Officer for Land and Environment at the European Commission, DG INTPA. By now, I hope all of you know that that is the Director General for International Partnerships. And I am responsible there for, among other things, the Regreening Africa program. I'm the focal point for the Great Green Wall and our work with the UNCCD. So we'll cover all of these things today in our panel. Great to be here. I think COP28 really is the time to be speaking about the importance of land for climate. We had at COP27, for the first time, really a mention of nature and of food systems in a cover decision. And I think we should definitely build on that momentum. So it's good that we have it here, that we have a UNCCD pavilion for the first time. I'm looking at you, Birgit, here at a COP. It really is the moment to be talking about this. So I'm glad that we're all here. We will be covering now in this panel in a bit more detail some of the things that we touched upon in the keynotes, specifically some of our experiences under the Regreening Africa program, but we've also got colleagues here that are fantastic experts in the Great Green Wall. And well, we're just really building off of what our political masters have told us, right? If I recall in the World Climate Summit in the opening, President Macron mentioned that we need, among other things, more action on the Great Green Wall. So we're doing the plumbing now. We're following up. Before we get into introducing our speakers, I would just like to remind you that we have the Slido active. You will have noticed that this is a silent session. So also to hear better, make sure that you're wearing the headphones. It also means that we will not have a microphone going around. You will be able to put your questions in the Q&A on Slido. There will be it will come on the screens now, a QR code that you can scan. And you will have two options. You will have the Q&A, and there will also be a question for you that you're free to answer. And we'll have a look at it in a couple of minutes as well. This is the question: how do we best raise awareness about sustainable land management's importance for the climate change agenda? Yes. I'll leave you with that for a couple of minutes at your own pace. Make sure you provide maybe an answer to this question, provide your Q&A in the chat, and then we'll get to that after first round of questions from me towards the panel. So that's the logistics. Let's get started with the introduction briefly of our speakers, and I'll give each and one of you a chance to elaborate a little bit. So the other Tony already gave quite the illustrative introduction to you, Tony Ronaldo, who is a Principal Climate Change Advisor at World Vision Australia, but most known for winning the Right Livelihoods Award in 2018, which is an alternate Nobel Prize. And you're also the Commandeur de Mérite de la République du Niger, right? Perfect. Thanks to have you. Thanks for being here, Tony. It really is a pleasure to have you with us. Maybe a hand for Tony. Yeah, before. Then we have a dear friend of mine, Yusuf Maina Buka, who is the Director General of the Nigeria National Agency for the Great Green Wall. Please also give him a hand. We have Birgit Lamizana Diallo, who is the Senior Program Officer at the Global Mechanism of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. And then you already know Melin Nabisa, who is the project coordinator at Inuka Youth for Nature. Please give her another round of applause. All right. We'll go through one by one, first round, and then we'll move to the Q&A, right? So, Tony, I'll start with you. You also have another nickname, right? You're the Forest Maker. That's another name you're famous with. You worked in Niger from the 1980s, and you discovered what you called the underground forest, right? And that really was the inception of what was later to be known as farmer-managed natural regeneration, which we touched upon in the keynotes. And that's also why you won the Right Livelihoods Award. You really inspired a movement of farmers in the region to pick this technique up. And you've also recently ventured into acting. Well, I exaggerate. There was a documentary about Tony's life work with a fellow countryman of mine, Volker Schlöndorff, who is an Oscar-winning director, made a documentary about Tony's work, which is called The Forest Maker. I advise everyone to watch it to get a better idea of Tony's work and FMNR. But without further ado, what we would like to know from you, because we've thrown those 4 words around quite a lot already today, what is precisely FMNR, and how does that relate to climate change mitigation and adaptation? Tony, please.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here. Beneath vast tracts of formerly forested land exists an underground forest, and it consists of tree stumps, living roots, and dormant seeds with the capacity to resprout if given a chance. And for the most part, this is largely untapped. Once this underground forest is unleashed, the impact will be not just transformational, but revolutionary. So as a technical approach, farmer-managed natural regeneration, or FMNR, involves the selection and management of trees and shrubs growing from that underground forest. And because you're not having to purchase and store seeds, you don't have to invest in a nursery, pay for transport or planting of trees. It can be very, very rapid and scalable, and we can do it at extremely low cost. So while it's complementary to tree planting, it's not the same. In Niger Republic, for example, once farmers appreciated the positive impacts on their livelihoods, on their agriculture, the method spread at the rate of 250,000 hectares per year for 20 years, largely without external support or intervention. FMNR is also a development approach in that it involves mindset change, mindsets on the value and purpose of trees on the landscape, and it also involves behavior change, behavior on how we use or abuse fire, livestock, cultivation, and cutting of woody biomass. FMNR brings people together. It helps them self-organize, enables, empowers, advocates for enabling policy environments, and facilitates linkages to the markets. And to a large degree, this is why the EU-funded Regreening Africa project has been so successful. So FMNR is a very powerful development approach for unleashing the potential of communities to help themselves and to create the future that they want by working with nature instead of destroying it. In terms of adaptation and mitigation, well, as trees grow, of course, they draw down carbon dioxide. But in addition to that, people who care for FMNR trees prevent, and when fires occur, put out fires. So you're drawing down carbon dioxide, but you're also vastly reducing emissions. In terms of adaptation, trees create more favorable microclimates. They reduce wind speeds, temperatures, evaporation. Trees help restore the water cycle, soil fertility, increase biodiversity. They buffer and increase resilience against climatic shocks. So restoration through FMNR, through landscape restoration, is a very, very powerful adaptation tool and mitigation tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, we can give him a hand, of course. I very much like these points, and it reminds me of something that someone mentioned to me just a couple weeks back, which relates to your point about the value of trees. And he said, you know, we need to make trees the new cattle, basically. And it really brings home that point to try and find ways to get communities, farmers, see the value and the connections of farmer-managed natural regeneration and of trees to the various objectives that we have. Thank you, Tony. We will move on to Yusuf Maina Bucar. You were appointed by former President Buhari last year, in 2022, and you really have hit the ground running. I was running some of the numbers, so you have already trained more than 1,367 people in that short amount of time, community members, on Great Green Wall relevant activities. And you also established the Great Green Wall Day, which is July 13th, correct? Basically to mobilize the public about the mandate of the Great Green Wall Agency in Nigeria and to sensitize them to the benefits also of planting a tree, of the value of a tree. We want to, of course, spend some time also in this panel talking about the Great Green Wall, which is this massive initiative that all of the work relates to inevitably in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa. And as the Director General of a national agency, you really are a key player in this initiative. And Nigeria also at the moment holds the presidency of what is called the Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall. So you're really in it at the moment, technically and politically. And also through our new program, which is the Knowledge for Great Green Wall Action Program, which we are carrying out together with Sifori Kraf, who's here today represented by Eliane. We will be intensifying our work also with the system of national agencies in the coming months and years. So this is a good start. But I would also like to pose a question to you, Yusuf. So the Great Green Wall obviously is a fantastic example of initiative that enables synergies between land and climate action and drylands in particular. Could you elaborate a little bit more about how you're creating these synergies on the ground through your work in Nigeria? We'd be very interested in hearing something about that. Yusuf, please.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I would like to use 10 of my seconds to appreciate Mr. Tony here, because I watched his documentary several years ago. There was a point that you almost gave up, but then you noticed there was a tree on a hill, a rocky hill, kind of, but that didn't, it was still alive. And that was then you realized that it was its taproot that was able to search for the water underground. And that was like that moment, and I've been implementing that personally for more than a decade now. It's a pleasure and honor sitting right by your side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction once again, and good morning to you all. The National Agency for the Great Green Wall is one of the 11 countries as member states of the Pan-African Agency for the Great Green Wall. So we planned for restoration, and we planned from the Borno state, which is at the extreme end of the country, to the southwestern part of the country, just like in Djibouti to Senegal. And now 3 more countries will be joining, hopefully by first quarter of next year, including Somalia, Gambia, and Cote d'Ivoire. We've been working closely with the communities and with the support of the state governors and our ministers and community-based organizations, the CSOs. And I have to also extend my appreciation to C4 ICRAF and Tree Aid, because they've done a lot. The world has a lot to learn from them. They've been there when it all started in Ethiopia more than 40 years ago. And as the other Tony mentioned, they wouldn't mind the whole world to be green. But at the moment, they're starting with Africa. He also mentioned that long before mankind, around 4 billion years ago, it was green. And if we allow the Earth to breathe a little bit, it will give us a lot more. So if you have a farm or a farmland, and then you allow it to rest for 3 to 4 years, you'll be surprised by what will be regained from what was lost. So that is basically what we're hoping to learn. If you remember with the conversation we had with Patrick Worms in Brussels, he saw the map. And he said if they're able to do it in Niger Republic, that means they could be able to replicate it in Nigeria. And earlier on, somebody mentioned that the next phases will include about 7 countries. I believe Nigeria is among the countries because we formed a partnership with them. So, and at the moment, we're also reaching out to state governors for them to demonstrate the act in their respective states, for them to be able to also involve directly, and not for them to wait for us at the national level to tell them what to do, because they are closer to communities. They will be able to also reach out to the international and financial technical partners for support. They will be able to attend meetings such as this. They will be able to empower or allow their youths to also implement their own initiatives by themselves. And in that way, we will be able to reach the target of by 2030 of the United Nations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Yusuf. We can also give them a round of applause. Yes, thank you. No, that's great to hear. And you see a lot of the points are being connected. We have, obviously, Eliane with us. We also have TRIAID representatives here with us today. So really a lot of connections that are being made. So it's fantastic to see this community grow that are all seeking to make the Great Green Wall a success. On that, we'll move to our next speaker, who is Birgi Lamizana Diallo. You have quite the illustrative past in terms of important organizations in this space that you've worked for. You've worked for UNEP, you've worked for IUCN, and you've worked for the African Development Bank on very relevant topics that we are talking about today, right? And just before COP28, actually, since you're representing the UNCCD, you released a very interesting synergy brief, which was entitled Land and the Road to Decarbonization and Resilience, really making that point that there is a crucial role to play for sustainable land management and for large-scale land restoration in the climate question. And, well, it's really the big question for a couple of years now. How do we make the Rio Conventions work better together? How can we create synergies between them? And what I would like to hear from you, we just had the CRIC, which is an intersessional meeting of the UNCCD, which just closed in Samarkand in November, where it was again said that there is no viable solution to climate change without transforming the current way land is used, managed, and governed. So really that is a message at the heart of our discussions at the moment, both at the UNCCD level, but also in our conversations with the UNFCCC in an event like COP28. What are you specifically doing at the UNCCD to create awareness about the great potential that sustainable land management has for the climate change agenda? That will be my question to you. Please, Birgi.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. This is a huge question, Nicholas, because I think since the creation of the Rio Convention, we are talking about synergy. But we are walking paths and trying to close these gaps, and I think we are getting there. Getting there because more and more the heads of these conventions are talking together, are planning together, are working together toward the synergy. You rightly pointed out, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about biodiversity, all this cannot happen without land, without a healthy land. Biodiversity, trees and flowers and everything and water running, all this is on land. Climate we are talking about when we say about carbon sinking or carbon storage or emissions, it's happened when you have a bare land or when you have a healthy land, you can see the difference. So it's a natural connection between these three conventions. At UNCCD, we are trying to really walk and the talk. seeing how do you restore lands, because if land is degraded, you are jeopardizing the baseline of all humanity. We are all standing on lands. We get our water from land. We breathe the air from the land. So that's really where it comes from. So what we are trying to do is working in different levels. At the normative level, on policies, development, at global level. We have some kind of, at global level, for example, on the SDGs 15.3, on life on land. But we are also trying at the country level, working with each of them. UNCCD as a convention has 197 members. So how do we help them to set, either reverse or stop the land degradation? So working with the countries to have the land degradation neutrality. More of them have done so, and we are helping them to implement. This is one. The second is on the global campaign, raising awareness. For example, through the World Desertification Day, which happened on the 17th of June, and working, trying to see how we can convince. Building partnership and advocacy. We launched the International Drought Resilience Alliance, which is headed by Spain and Senegal, and more countries are joining. This also to raise awareness and work together. On the fourth, we work on knowledge and capacity building, doing workshop, trainings, raising funding for countries. And we launched our dashboard. At least for first time now, you can manage, you can assess the rate of land restoration. And this dashboard is available to all. And I'm not talking about the price for the reporting for the countries. And lastly, but not the least, is really helping the countries through the global mechanism by helping them develop programs, transformative programs, because some countries, sometimes you have a program, but you have to have it holistic. In a program where you can look into biodiversity, climate, land restoration, but the livelihood of communities. Because as the first speakers in the morning said, the other Tony, as you want to say, that we are all caring for humanity. And when we care about humanity and what is the ecosystem surrounding it, then you care also for the planet, for the living ecosystem, and the land who sustains us. So it's a lot. I think it's not only one jungle work, but it's coming as a synergy and holistic, and working with partners like you, like the European Union, like Sikor Ikraf. This morning I was talking about one of the hero of the natural regeneration who is sitting in front of me, that collaboration is key, because we all have a part to play. And I want to mention in the room that we have the Pan-African Green Wall, who is also head-leading and working with all the countries to make this happen. So that's what we are trying to do.
Thank you, Birgi. I think the UNCCD is, I think we can leave it here, yeah. I think the UNCCD is really a champion in silo breaking, is what you'd mentioned. I think in all of the discussions that we have with you and in the way that you also design your events and your interventions that we've been lucky to be part of, you really tackle it from a holistic approach like you've mentioned. And I think this is really the path to follow. And that's why I very much personally appreciate the UNCCD as an actor, because you're forcing us to think beyond the horizon of our thematic silos. And I think specifically working on this, it is very, very important. And understanding that, like you said, with having people as our point of departure, we might not become aware of the fact that we're already breaking our silo, because we will have so many positive collateral impacts by focusing on people first and making sure that we're doing that through environmental techniques. So thank you, Birgi, for your intervention and for taking this conversation forward. Now, for a last intervention before I'll have a look at my Q&A, and I see that questions are coming in, so thank you. Melon, we'll come back to you. So you work on Inuka Youth for Nature, of course. You have in the past and continue to work on the sustainable use and restoration of coastal forests, of mangroves. We saw that also in the video, the Big Ship project. And you were actually also trained for a while at World Vision Kenya. So there's also a connection to Tony here. And obviously through Inuka, you're really working on building the environmental leaders of the future, which is absolutely crucial. And we want to just tap on that because, as was mentioned by Tony in the beginning, Africa has the youngest population of any continent. We're looking at 70% of sub-Saharan Africa under the age of 30. So inevitably, these are going to be the people that will live through the impacts of climate change most significantly. And at the same time, these are also the people that have the energy and the motivation, like we can see with you, Melin, to do something about it, right? So it is only natural that we're seeking to elevate and to empower youth in every aspect of our work. And I want to hear from you, because you're obviously much further ahead on this than we are. But what's your secret sauce? So how can you, through youth leadership and storytelling, help us to create a movement for nature-based solutions like sustainable land management? How do you do it? Melin, please.
Well, first, thank you for that question. And it's a team effort. I don't do it alone. I have my team here with me. And working together is usually very exciting, especially being in a youth-led organization. We are all being in a youth-led organization that is horizontally managed. So we all share the same perspectives. We all share the same ideas on how we want to do it and how the changes we want to make in the climate nature space. So through storytelling, I will say storytelling, first of all, is a very powerful tool on how we can share our experiences, because we are able to simplify the terms, the scientific terms, so that the normal person can understand what we are doing. And through this, we are also able to showcase our success stories and inspire more of the youth to be able to take part on this journey. So like in Inuka, we have an aim of reaching 100 million people. You know, how can we tell our stories to 100 million people and get them involved in our work? So we mostly capitalize on storytelling and sharing our stories on the social media and also other digital platforms. And also, we are able to create solidarity in this space, because through this, we connect with other youth and who are able to share their experiences, share networks on how we can get funding, share resources, and also share platforms on seminars we can attend, and we are able to be together in this space and work together.
Please give a hand to Melin. Thank you, Melin. It's really fascinating how you're already planting the seed of collaboration with young people, because it's very much needed. And I mean, we're sitting in a room, all of us have a part to play. If we're being honest, yes, we're obviously collaborating. Is it to the best extent possible? There is always room for more and for better. And I think the earlier we start to understand that the problem can only be solved by working together, by putting our hands together and trying to lift each other up together, I think the better we are for it further down the line of our careers. So thank you again, Melin, for your work. Now, we've got some questions coming in, so thank you. That means you're paying attention. Fantastic. I've had a peek, and there are some questions that actually line up perfectly with our panelists that we have here. I didn't specify that you could also obviously put in a name for your specific question if you wanted one of our panelists specifically to answer a question. But I'm seeing some of the questions, well, there's some are putting a name, but I saw one come past which is just perfect for Tony. So I'll start with you again. We have a question from Anonymous, and feel free to also raise your hand. Unfortunately, like we said, we have to do Q&A through Slido. We don't have a microphone to have you ask your question in the room. But as I'm reading the question, maybe you can raise your hand if that's not an issue for you to know who asked the question. The question to Tony: in which areas or conditions do you believe that FMNR achieves the best results? I'm sure you've given an answer to this question many times, but we'd love to hear it again, because we obviously want to know where, how. Tony, please.
Thank you. Excellent question.
Who asked the question? Do we have someone? Yes, Andrea.
So actually, the principles of FMNR apply across the whole range of ecosystems. What it looks like in each context will differ. Where the uptake is greatest so far is in Africa. Within Africa, where the greatest application is in the drier, semi-arid and even hyper-arid zones. Not that it doesn't work in those other climates, but that's where perhaps the greatest need is, and that's where the least number of alternative options are. Very hard to succeed with tree planting, very hard to succeed with high-value cash crops, but FMNR is almost 100% certain result at very low cost and very rapidly. So most effective, most likely to be taken up in the drier zones of the world where you have the underground forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Right. We're having a look here. There's really perfectly tailored questions to each one of our panelists. I'll move to you, Yusuf, for our next question. This person asks, can we know more about the impact of the National Agency of the Great Green Wall in Nigeria? Sorry, this is a more spicy question, if you will. Do you have some examples to illustrate your success? You know, some examples of the engagements you've had over the last couple of months where you've really seen your work take shape and have impact. Maybe we can see who asked that question as well. Is there a hand? No? Okay, well, we'll just answer it to the public. Yusuf, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Dr. Birgi, you were there at COP15. And at COP15, at the Africa Pavilion, it was only Burkina Faso that depicted the picture of the Half Moon and Zai pit at that time on an A2 size paper, I think. I saw it and I was impressed. I was moved. And so I told them, some of them, that yes, I'm going to implement this and also adapt the Grower's water box, the Dutch invention. Now we've done both. And while we were preparing for the planting season of 2022, then someone said, so people have done this in so place and it wasn't successful. Then I said, it's because you have not dug the Zai pit. Then some of our field officers went to an extra mile and then procured the cow dung or from the other smaller ruminants and then inserted it inside that pit. Now we have about 80% success rate of the planting of 2022. This is something that you can zoom in with your Google Earth, and if you check back the records, you will see there, to the extent that one of the major countries in the Southeast Asia saw it and then associated herself without even our knowledge, saying they're the one carrying out a particular program. The field officer called my attention and I said, that's fine. Because may his soul rest in peace, Yakubu Sawadego, he gave the world what, according to what I read somewhere, professors couldn't give the entire world for so many years. So we're doing it and it's happening, and you can verify it on Google Earth. You will see them, that there's a lot of changes with, compared to what we've been doing previously. So does that answer the question?
Yes, absolutely.
But that is on the surface. That is on the surface of the earth. Now, if you remove political boundaries, you know that the element knows no limit. Yeah? So, but talking about the people now. The people, why are we here at this conference? Energy transition. Finding cleaner ways of cooking. Not making or cutting or destroying or any other words that you could use, deforestation of some of our investments, right? So in order to achieve what? To limit the temperature, 1.5, a long story from cut short, right? So that is basically what we're doing, trying to see that we support the target population in those communities living within and near the GGW area for them to be able to cook in a sustainable manner, for them to be able to construct in a sustainable manner, and to also carry out their agricultural activities in a sustainable manner. Now, for example, according to FAO standard, for example, if she is to, or you are to, make use of a ridger or a plow or a harrow to till a particular surface of the earth that is not previously been used, it will be declared as a regeneration technique, and it will be counted on. But if you are to go further by adopting the farmer-managed natural regeneration technique, which one is much better? FMNR. Because, yes, the world is also encouraging permaculture, agroforestry, no-till agriculture, but it all depends. It happens through stages. And bit by bit, I believe we will develop sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Nice. Maybe for those that don't know, unfortunately we don't have a picture of it, but the Zai pit and a half moon, if you could quickly just explain what that normally entails and looks like. And
well, I think the person who invented it passed away on the 3rd of December. He's from Burkina Faso, Mr. Yakuba Sawadego. It's, some call it the demi-lune or half moon. Yes, where a semicircle did like an excavation that will eventually form a ridge, in which if water goes in, it will not escape easily, and then it will soak up. And then you don't stop at that. You also dig a pit in which you're going to put some cow dung in it. By putting a cow dung in it, it will encourage insects or termites to come up from beneath the earth to create a pathway to the cow dung. And once they feed on it, and then it creates channels in which the water could go deeper. So instead of having a splash rainfall that would just gush away and pass without making use of it, it stays there for quite some time and gives moisture to anything that you plant there, be it crops or trees.
yes, perfect. Thank you, Yusuf. I asked you to clarify because it really illustrates how many incredible techniques and tools we have at our availability that are also not necessarily very expensive, right? In the case of FMNR, something very simple. It comes at a cost. Well, we refrain from putting a cost on it, but it oscillates somewhere between $20 and $30 per hectare restored, I assume. Tony, you correct me if I'm wrong. But it's really solutions that can work in communities without a lot of investment, right? Again, trying to move towards an understanding of community members that this is something that can help them, right? Not necessarily providing the finance, but rather making sure that there's some kind of change in the way that people approach the situation, right? And I think also something that you spoke about, Yusuf, is quite interesting. You're referring to, the energy transition, you're referring to clean cooking, and I think that's really something that, if you haven't been engaged with the Great Green Wall over the last 2 or 3 years, has been a big development, the rethinking of the Great Green Wall to really be a holistic initiative to develop productive and green landscapes across the Sahel and the Horn of Africa. We're not just focused on tree planting. We're really looking at all kinds of activities that can help restore the landscapes, that can create healthier soils, that can create healthier livelihoods and more sustainable livelihoods. So thank you also for making that point, because I think it's really important when we speak about the Great Green Wall that is spread, right? Because there's still a conception out there that the Great Green Wall is just us planting a 15-kilometer wide band of trees across the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, right? It's much more. You also mentioned something else, and that's going to be a nice segue to my question for Birgi. You spoke about remote sensing and looking at the results of your actions from high above. So that obviously opens the question as to how we can make sure that we're following up, that we're monitoring everything that we do, right? So I'm not going to ask a very technical question, Birgi, don't worry, but this is a question that was asked in the Q&A, which I think is also an important one to be asked, and it also received quite a lot of likes, too, which is a lot. What, in your opinion, in your position, I should have mentioned actually, Birgi is also the head of the Great Green Wall Accelerator that is housed within the global mechanism at the UNCCD. And there, you're cooking up also a framework, a monitoring framework for the Great Green Wall. So, my question to you, what are some of the key indicators that we should monitor and measure across the Great Green Wall to make sure that we're really getting a sense of what is being done, what impact we're having, and how positive that impact is? Birgit, please.
Thank you. I think that, they said, let me also maybe take this opportunity to give tribute to Yakuba Sawadogo. He has been rewarded several years. He is from Yatenga, where I'm also from, and he made a difference. He did make a difference without being a PhD or a master's degree, but he showed even the professors at the university what to do and how to do it. Yeah, we had the big loss last week. So you talked about what to monitor and that we are cooking. In fact, we are just supporting at UNCCD. The monitoring goes and really belong to the countries and to the Pan-African Green Wall. And since like more than 3 years now, we are working, they started working with the countries to kind of document what is the indicators they have been monitoring so far. How are they doing it? And it has taken a long of participatory approach to bring the countries together, to collect their monitoring tools, their indicators, to come to a common language, and to come up with some core indicators and some which the countries themselves feel comfortable to monitor and to report. All this under the leadership of the Pan-African Green Wall, with support from UNCCD, and I want to acknowledge the funding from the Austria government. And this result management framework have been adopted by all the countries now, and even the international communities, to look into how to, what to monitor and how to do it. Going further, also to build a digital platform where it could be not creating from at NILO, but taking what is in there and setting up a task force. We come again to a partnership. A task force of all the tools, all the institutions, which has some tools and platforms, and see how to bring a more friendly platform which can be not just to create and say we have created, but which will be ownership from the countries, monitor, and also managed by the countries and the Pan-African Green Wall. In this task force, you can find C4ICRAF again, you can find FAO, you can find the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration with UNEP and the teams. You can find WOCA. I think I made a mistake by naming, but they are really all of them together. And they're having regular meetings. This platform is almost complete, at least a beta version, where you can have the indicators, but you have the impact, and you will have also the donors related phase where they could see the funding. Because sometimes when we speak, we say most of funding has gone to the Sahel. Most of the funding has gone to the Great Green Wall. Where is the result? But you need to have a baseline first. When you have a baseline, you say, this is where I were, this is where the path I want to take, and this is what I want to monitor. And we will be having an Expo Qatar in February, where I hope that this platform will be presented, if not before. And that's what, at least putting a tool at the end, in the end of the countries of the Great Green Wall, so that they could themselves monitor. I think Innocent is here. He's part of this task force. He might explain better than I, because they are the one dealing really on having their hands on the DAC and developing these platforms. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Birgit. So maybe the person that asked the question, you know whom to talk to. But also, I'd like to, you touched upon the work of the FAO and CIFOR-ICRAF. Yes, definitely want to highlight, on one hand, a very important study that the FAO actually released a couple of months back, which is the African Deal, DEAL, which provides a fantastic overview of biophysical data in the Great Green Wall area. And also the work of Lee from CIFOR-ICRAF, the Land Degradation Surveillance Framework, which has been utilized in our Regreening Africa program, which is really doing fantastic work also of, well, helping us understand what's happening in our soils, right? So these are some of the let's say, entry points that we can take to understand a bit better what to monitor and what's happening. All right. Before we move to some closing remarks, because time's flying by when you're having fun and when you have a great panel, but I also want to ask a last question to Melon, and there was actually one that was sorry, directed at you in the Q&A, and I will ask you that. Melon, can you tell us more about how finances could be most meaningful used for youth and youth projects? Maybe we can see who asked that question. Do we have a hand? No, we don't? Okay. But yes, how can finance that you have access to best be mobilized for youth and youth projects? How do you see the collaboration with donors of different sizes? And how do you think that could best be utilized? What do you need more from donor organizations, be it large NGOs or institutional organizations? Melon, please.
So for collaboration and how we can access funding, first, as youth-led initiatives, we would like to have sustainable and unrestricted funding so that we can also, so that we can support the initiatives that are already happening on the ground. So for example, in a case of Inuka, we are always working with youth groups that are already doing something on the ground, depending on their need basis. And as Inuka, we come in to support them through offering small micro grants so that they can also scale up their initiatives, like the mangrove restoration or the FMNR projects. And this is usually very fundamental to us, because you find that some donors will not easily give funds to the grassroots level youth groups. And so through Youth for Nature and Inuka, we are able to get this funding for the grassroots groups that are doing the work on the ground. And this is mostly important to help us scale up our work and also create more impact on what we are doing on the ground. Because these are the real people who are facing the challenges of climate change, and we need to really help them as best as we can. Yeah.
Thank you, Melon. No, this is a great point, and very much appreciated the work that you're doing, also providing microgrants to reward the motivation and ambition that young people in particular have on the ground. I would love to dig into a lot more topics that we have here, but we're running short on time. Maybe before we move to the closing remarks, I would like to have a quick peek at your answers to the question that we asked at the very beginning of the panel. So I would like to ask the tech team to maybe close the poll, sorry, and to have it presented on the screen if we could, just to get an idea of our answers. Yes. Amazing. We will take those home, don't worry. I won't be able to read out all of them, but you will have access also to them on your Slido app. But these will help us also take things away from the session, right? Apart from the direct engagement that we will have potentially in a little chat after the session, this is some hard letter, if you will, that we will take with us and, well, incorporate hopefully into our work going forward in the different institutions that we're working. So I will be sharing that with each and every one of you, also in the mailing list that I have of people attending. How do we best raise awareness about sustainable land management's importance for climate change agenda? We really have some great sentences here. Obviously, elevate the work that youth are already doing, relating back to what Melon is doing. Also, media, TikTok, Reels. I think we cannot shy away from social media anymore. I think it's such a powerful tool as well to make sure that our messages are heard, that we make the connections and make people aware of connections. Specific advocacy to political leaders, yes, of course. I think, you know, where the power and where the money is, that's where we also need to try and make a dent, right? So events like this, I would hope, help in doing that, help in convincing, you know, the people that are in charge, the people that are in power, to take the right decisions concerning the experiences that are already there, the evidence that we have at our hand, as you could hear today. I won't delve deeper because we're just about 5 minutes shy of the end of the session. So I would like to invite Marietta back on stage to provide us with some closing remarks. Please give her a hand. And in the meantime, I would like for you to also give our panel a hand, which it has been really an incredible exchange. Thanks to each and every one of you.
Thank you, Nicolas, and thank you to our inspiring panel. You've been the best, all of you, and I would like to, first of all, say on the behalf of the Commission and DG INPA in particular, thank you and really my deep appreciation for your panel discussion and, of course, underlining the land and climate nexus. What you have said today, it's really something that was underlined again, and it's a clear and important link between sustainable land management, land restoration, and the climate agenda. So this is something that we would like you to remember, because you have provided an interesting evidence, for example, from Somalia or Nigeria, where Regreening Africa and Great Green Wall Initiative are providing the really good ground for action and innovation. So thank you for all your hard work and basically promoting our Great Wall Initiative as well. But I can't conclude without saying how fascinating it is always to cherish and appreciate Tony's work, because really it's a stunning potential of the farmer-managed natural generation that fascinates me, because sometimes the simple solutions are the most efficient solution. It's probably something that we should have learned from our grandparents, how to do it in order to be innovative and look like in the home gardening, target tree planting, and also as well as water conservation, as we all know that the water agenda is extremely important. They are really key to regreening landscapes and to face the climate change. Secondly, what you all said is the fundamental role of young people and women. We all know Carla and their female colleagues, we are very practical as ladies, and we do have good practical solutions, and we like to implement and deliver. So that's why our role in the whole initiative is key. But moreover, there is a huge role for youth, because it is basically the tomorrow that belongs to them, and they are the catalysts of the success for our programs. So a big applause to our youth and everything that you are doing, you know, for this remark. And my last conclusion, if you give me one more minute, it's about partnership. So it's a crucial role of the partnerships, being horizontally and being vertically around the governments. But through the Great Green Wall Accelerator and UNCCD, for example, we are creating the new innovative partnerships and really to create the synergies and to move the needle on the various policy goals at the same time. So again, I would like to salute to the partnerships. We need more of them, and we need all of you to basically share this knowledge about the partnership across the world. And I would really like to thank also the COP and all the organizers for giving us this space to give the voice to all of us for a global moment to raise awareness about the importance of the issue and of the nexus. So we hope that you will join us in catalyzing and shaping this movement together, that it will grow like the trees that Tony is planting. And dear friends, again, it was enormous pleasure and honor to have you all here. Please tweet, go to social media, and share the awareness about our great initiative. So applause to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And our event is officially closed.
Really, such a pleasure to have you.